I'm a pretty chill guy, but there are a few things in life that I hate more than this. Going to a car dealership. Every time my wife and I are in the market for a new car, we're forced to visit the local car dealership. And the process involves a lot of unnecessary waiting, painful haggling, and encounters with many practices that are quite frankly, downright deceitful. So in this video, I want to share with you some of these disingenuous car dealership practices so that you can not only recognize them, but hopefully avoid them outright.
Well, the first red flag would be if the salesman says to you, well, before we can go for a test drive, I'm either going to need a deposit or a credit application. But they need neither, okay? They don't need a deposit for you to test drive a car, and they don't need to know what your credit score is for you to test drive a car. They need to know what your credit score is when it's time to try and get you a loan, if they're the ones that are going to try and get you the loan. So right there at hello, those could be two of the red flags that would pop up.
You made an impulsive buy. Shoot, I don't even impulsively buy a candy bar.
No, she doesn't.
So for you car buyers, impulsiveness or desperation are your greatest enemies. It might surprise you to know that the best time to buy a vehicle is when you don't need one. There's no pressure, so you don't need the vehicle, and that alone gives you lots of leverage as a car buyer. You'll have no problem spending more time shopping around. You easily walk away from deals that aren't right for you because you have time and you're interested in not making mistakes.
That is actually one question you definitely want to answer the salesman that you're going to have approach you or you approach on the dealership lot. You want to get it out the gate right up front of why you are at the dealership. You want to know before you come here what your wants and needs are, what's your end game of car shopping. So make sure you do answer the question of what brings you into the dealership.
Shopping for cars is not like shopping for most other products. Unlike, say, laptops or dishwashers, cars are typically not sold for one standard price. 10 people can go into a dealership and each pay a completely different amount to buy the exact same vehicle. This for me just feels completely wrong. I understand that homes in the same neighborhood could sell for different prices because not all homes are identical. Even the exact same layout could have different view and different corner of the street. However, cars with the same model and same specs are identical. Economists actually have a term for this. It's called, not surprisingly, price discrimination. Instead of charging everyone the same price, the seller charges the buyer different prices based on his or her willingness to pay. The dealership essentially is trying to milk as much money as they can out of their customer. If you seem more gullible, they'll upcharge you by $2,000. If you seem like a type to put up a fight, they may upcharge you only by $1,000. Yes, we shouldn't group all dealerships in this category, given I'm sure there are dealerships that do not engage in this strategy. I just haven't found one yet. The fact is that many dealerships do engage in it, and they do it aggressively. Deceptive marketing tactics, hidden fees, and overpriced unnecessary add-ons. And to make matters worse, this ugly strategy is deployed unevenly. Some studies found that dealerships tend to charge people of color more, older people more than younger individuals, and older women compared to other age and gender groups.
So that right there was a perfect scenario of a car salesman, as Mr. Chevy Dude says, sleazy car salesman, asking you qualifying questions on the lot. The reason car salesmen ask that questions because two things happen there. One, they're pre-qualifying you to figure out how to work their car deal. Yes, I said their car deal, not your car deal. They're in control. Again, remember, they're the professionals. They do this every day. We as consumers do this every 4 to 5 years. Two, they also pre-qualify to see who the real buyer is. In this scenario, Mrs. is here, husband's not. Husband's the real buyer because he's got the credit. So you don't answer those questions so that way they can't pre-qualify you or prejudge you on a car deal. That all sounds perfect. This is a pretty pricey car, so it's going to take a substantial amount of money down to get to $350. So how much money are you planning on putting down?
You made an unplanned drive to a dealership. Bad move. Even when you've done your research, don't ever go to a car dealer on a whim. Do as much as you can online, trade emails back and forth with the dealership, talk to them on the phone, and when you're ready, set an appointment through the Dealer's Business Development Center, commonly known as the BDC, or with the Internet Manager. Before arriving at the dealership, you should have received photos of the vehicle you're interested in, both interior and exterior, and if it's a used car, ask for a video of it running. Get the vehicle history and a written price quote via email. When you get to the dealer, you'll know exactly who you're going to talk to. This greatly minimizes the game playing. If you encounter any red flags during this process, well, stop wasting your time. Move on to another dealer or seller.
So again, this is a pre-qualifying question because now they need to figure out how to work their deal, not your deal, right? So if you have no money down, Mrs. Chevy Dude's being goofy and saying only $500 down, but that's a real scenario that happens on the car lot every single day. So if you can't get to $350 on this brand new Malibu, what do you think a car salesman is gonna do? They're gonna take control of their deal and take you to a car that can get you to $350 per month.
Most car shoppers have an idea of the amount of money they can spend on each month for a car when they start shopping. And salespeople are well aware of this fact. So what they'll try to do is get this number from you. What your comfortable monthly payment is. Whatever you do, don't fall for this trap. Salespeople like to start with the monthly payments because it allows them to combine multiple factors to fit that figure. The trade-in value of your current car, financing terms, the price of the new car, and some random deal they have going on that day. They will get you to that monthly payment number, but you'll be so confused by how they got there. But that is because that is the core of their strategy. Mixing these negotiations allow the dealership to highlight the most favorable figure, like the total price of the car, while covering up less favorable figure like the financing term or the trade-in value. It's not until you get home you realize that while you bought the car at lower than MSRP, you only got half the trade-in value, and the terms of your loan is now 72 months versus the 16 months you originally had in mind. You were just so fixated on the price that the car salesman kept highlighting, you couldn't see the tree in the forest. This is why it's important to remind ourselves of the earlier point of trading in cars. You don't want to bring in a factor that a dealership can use against you. And in addition, break out the negotiations of each sale separately. Negotiate the price of the car before you discuss financing. Never talk about monthly payments. Focus on the total value of the car. Also with financing, it's a good idea to have your loan pre-approved separately before you even start looking for cars. Though you might eventually use the dealership's financing terms, you can use it as a leverage to get them to terms that are more favorable for you.
And then if you're looking at a pre-owned car, and they want to charge you a reconditioning fee, well, I'm sorry, that's a cost of doing business. That should be factored into the asking price of the vehicle. So any dealership that would resort to that type of tactic, that's a red flag. And once again, I got my Sprinter shoes on, and I'm not even waiting for them to go ready, set, go. I'm just ready. I'm ready to go.
So there's 5 red flags just right off the top of your head that if those came up, you're in the dealership, you're saying, all right, I'm getting out of here. Are there any that come to mind, like even as you're perusing online? Like, I'm just wondering, like for example, when you go on a website and it says like call for pricing, I guess that's not a red flag. I mean, it's a competitive.
Well, that's because sometimes there are some dealerships out there that feel as if in order to compete, that you have to advertise the lowest price. And the lowest price, often with the really tiny print that, well, nobody could read, would explain why it's as low as it is. So some dealerships don't want to play that game, so they don't want to list the price. Okay. And then when you call for a price, they're not going to give you a price. They're going to try and set up an appointment for, well, when can you come in? You know, the sad reality is if dealerships actually answered customers' questions and were actually transparent in their pricing, eventually enough people would realize it and would just do business with them. But they're too afraid to do that.
Dealerships like to add the dealer-installed options to pad the price of the car. And the most frustrating part is that these are a lot of times added even after price has already been negotiated from our earlier point. These dealer-installed options come in many forms, but the ones I've seen have been just outright weird. Rust proofing, paint protection, or fabric protection. Shouldn't these just be a standard for a new car? And these guys don't come cheap because for the dealership, they translate directly to the bottom line. The fact is that these dealer-installed options are nothing but a complete waste of money. All new cars most often come with adequate rust, paint, and fabric protection applied at the factory. And what's worse is that when dealerships charge you for these unnecessary extras, not only is it a waste of money, it can void the car maker's original warranty on those categories of protection. You might even see them added to your sales invoice at the closing, even when none of it was ever discussed with you during sales. Go through your documents line by line so you know what you're paying for. Or best yet, make sure you clarify with the dealership that you don't want any dealer-added options on your vehicle. If they try to slide it in, no need to do business with that dealership.
End of the month deals are always the best. Dealerships are motivated to sell cars year-round, but given times of the month and later in the year, oh, that's when they get really hungry. You don't like to haggle? Well, nobody does. So time your purchase for the end of the month and aim for a Monday or Tuesday. If you want to time it even better, do the deal at the end of the year. They'll be the most patronizing dealer you've ever seen.
All right, we talked a lot about how car dealerships are out to rip you off. So the big question is, how do we protect ourselves? How can we wisely avoid being ripped off by car dealerships so we get the terms that are favorable to us? Let me share with you a few tips. Number one tip is to always do your research before you even start reaching out to different dealerships. You need to know the value of the car that you want. Look up Kelley Blue Books, Edmunds, or Nada guides. These websites will give you an accurate valuation of what a new or used car is worth in your area. This way you have a good baseline to start negotiating from. The second tip is to get your financing in order before you ever step into a dealership. You want to approach the negotiation from a position of strength and not be at the mercy of their lending terms. Get pre-approved for an auto loan from your bank or credit union, or even better yet, get a few different quotes so you can compare interest rates. This way you know how much car you can afford and what the true cost of ownership will be. Before we go, a final tip that I like to share is to use a middleman, or most often called an auto broker. And this isn't a recommendation for everyone, given you want to find someone whom you can trust. But an auto broker's job is to find you the best deal on the car that you want. And in some cases, they can even get you a better price than if you were to go directly to the dealership yourself. Of course, there is a fee involved. But if it means saving thousands of dollars on the purchase of your car, then it might be worth it. Thank you guys for watching. If you'd like to learn more about car and money, check out my video here. Until next time, all the best.